right, good morning and welcome back to another week where we talk about the fascinating world of New York City real estate and the people behind all of it. I would like to welcome all of you in the United States and all around the world. I am Vince Rocco. It is Tuesday morning here in New York City, so let's go behind the headlines and get the real story. And there are real stories. This is Talking New York Real Estate. And up front this morning, New York City's real estate landscape is as diverse as its population, with neighborhoods offering distinct specialization and catering to niche markets. In Manhattan, upscale enclaves like the Upper East Side and Tribeca boast luxurious apartments and celebrity residents, while areas like Harlem offer historic brownstones and a thriving cultural scene. Brooklyn's Williamsburg attracts hipsters with its trendy loft apartments, while Park Slope caters to families with its top-rated schools and charming brownstones. Queens' Long Island City is a hub for luxury high-rise and waterfront living. The Bronx's Riverdale offers suburban tranquility with scenic views, while the South Bronx undergoes revitalization, providing opportunities for affordable living and cultural resurgence. Understanding these niche markets is crucial for the real estate professionals to effectively match clients with the neighborhoods that best suit their needs and lifestyles. We will have all that and so much more as Talking New York Real Estate gets underway on this very busy and warmer Tuesday morning. And in the news this morning, if you don't first succeed, try and try again. It seems New York City's council member, Che Arce, has taken that advice to heart. On February 29th, he reintroduced a bill that would require landlords and owners who hire an agent in New York City to rent their apartments. He now must pay that broker fee. This follows an unsuccessful bid to get it passed last year. The bill, called Fairness in Apartment Rental Expenses Act, would let renters off the hook for paying a broker's fee when the landlord hires the broker. Arce said in a statement, "I am thrilled to reintroduce this critical piece of legislation that will bring transparency and fairness to New York's complex and expensive rental market." Arce's bill gained the support of a majority of the city council members last year, but it faced significant opposition from the Real Estate Board of New York, which represents brokers and agents in New York City. Rebney maintains that the bill would threaten agents' livelihood, saying, "Our members add significant value to the home search process for renters, and we will fight for their fair compensation and for their hard work." So Arce says he is thrilled. I have several words for him, and I'm not going to say them here. And like the last time, I will be on the picket line once again. And Brick Underground is staying above ground. Finally, the 15-year-old outlook for navigating all things New York City real estate, which was on the brink of going under, has landed a brand new buyer, according to the publication's boss, Terry Rogers. Rogers has yet to identify the new owner. The business had one foot in the grave last month when Rogers said publication would have to cease. Her LinkedIn post about the looming suspension of Brick Underground drew a heartfelt sadness throughout the industry. She said, "We have been overwhelmed by the volume and passion of community support that we received when we shared the state of our business and the reality that we may have to shut it down." The site resumed posting again, and Rogers plans to operate it through the end of March, at which time it will transfer, but Rogers will stay and remain at Brick Underground after the change. And finally, Governor Kathy Hochul announced last Wednesday that she is deploying the National Guard and MTA police officers into the city's subway system after a slew of high-profile crimes rocked the transit system. Hochul said she would place 750 members of the National Guard and 250 MTA officers into the system to assist the NYPD in performing bag checks for possible weapons. She hopes this will help dissuade individuals from bringing weapons underground. For his part, Mayor Adams continues to say that crime is down significantly in our transit system. The NYPD has already added up to 1,000 officers in the subway system every day in recent weeks, following 3 recent homicides in transit since the start of the year. The initiative is expected to run indefinitely and comes as part of a multi-pronged plan that will also look to enact legislation banning violent offenders from riding the subway. While the exact method of enforcement remains somewhat murky, both the governor and the MTA said it can and it will get done. And with me today are Isaac Rosenberg from Compass, Nicole Gary from Keller Williams, Daniel Blatman, the agency, and Anna Shagalov from Brown Harris Stevens.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, everybody, so we're back. Listen, we're going to talk about niche markets. We're going to talk about all of the different neighborhoods in New York City because, you know, when you start working with buyers, when you start working with renters, people always have a thought, always have an idea of where they want to live. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. You start with, you know, say a downtown search, for example, and then all of a sudden you expand to Midtown, you expand to Uptown. I have had more buyers and renters end up living wherever they said they never wanted to, right? That's just the way it is. But there are neighborhoods that appeal to people for school reasons, for work reasons, train reasons, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to get involved in all of it. I'm going to start with you, Daniel Blatman. So what are some of the key factors that contribute to that specialization of real estate markets in different neighborhoods? So none of us are specialists. Okay, we're all kind of generalists, but there are special markets, you know, niche markets. What about, you know, those neighborhoods make all of it different for almost everybody, actually?
I think we really specialize in people and humans. And if you imagine each person and each neighborhood itself actually has its own energy, has a different vibe. And if you imagine that each neighborhood, and neighborhoods are huge, like the Upper West Side is 4 different neighborhoods, Upper East Side also probably 4, maybe 5 different neighborhoods. So when people talk in generalization about a neighborhood, like you've got this standard poodle version of the Upper East Side, which is like Park Avenue and going west.
Wait a minute, standard poodle version?
I'm going to go with standard poodle.
Okay.
Is it groomed? Or?
Very groomed.
Okay. On Park
Very
Avenue?
groomed, and sometimes walks on 2 legs.
Okay.
Then
and a
you
stroller?
Absolutely. Well, the stroller, when they're ready for the stroller, sometimes it's
Look
still
at where
Park
you are.
Avenue, or they go to Park Slope. That will still kind of blend a little bit.
Totally different neighborhood.
Totally different neighborhood, but similar energy. Upper West Side also has more of a Golden Lab kind of energy. Greenpoint has a different energy than Williamsburg, but they also have different histories of the people that found them. And the developers that are doing things in Greenpoint and what people are doing. Like then you go to schools, and this isn't a fair housing thing, but like there's one amazing school in Williamsburg and you're lucky. So once people are trying to figure out where they're going to live, you got to meet people where they are in their lifestyle, which makes us more specialized in the humans and then makes us need to specialize in the energy of a neighborhood to figure out where is that human going to be happy, that it doesn't make them sacrifice their current lifestyle and helps them actually build on it and teach them. And then our job is to facilitate and teach them what they don't know, because most New Yorkers know what they know and they're afraid of what they don't know, which is a hell of a lot. And we just get to teach that.
Use that word advisor like it is the last time. We are advisors. And again, Absolutely. You start out in one neighborhood, you might end up in a very different neighborhood. And it's because everybody needs to be educated with what they're looking for. Nicole, you do a lot of stuff in a lot of different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So, you know, what are the experiences for you? I don't want to call them niche at the moment, but just in the variety of neighborhoods that you work in, including all the boroughs, you know, what's the driving factor there when you start out with a buyer?
So I like to think of myself as a global real estate advisor, because most of my clients not only have a home in New York, but they have multiple homes across the globe and across the U.S., across the world. So asking them questions and really understanding and pinpointing what they want and what's important to them is huge. Because sometimes they may think they want something. However, once you start asking them more questions and understand what is important to them, how do they like to eat breakfast? Do they have a family? Do they like natural light? What do they need to be close to Central Park? Is there a school they need to be close to? That really helps dive down on the neighborhood and what they'll get and the value that they'll get there. So, I mean, I work all across the city. I do a lot on Billionaires Row. I do a lot in Tribeca, a lot on the Upper East Side. And you're right, when most people don't really know what they want until they start looking. And they'll tell you, oh, I want the Upper East Side, for example. I had a lot of friends that I've moved out to Tribeca. And what I said is, you know, why do you want it? Because they're comfortable there. That's what they know. But once they come down to Tribeca and they spend a day and I show them, here's the neighborhood, there's playgrounds, there's schools, there's so much to do there. If they realize, wow, this is actually where I want to be, it's a whole nother vibe and it's a different type of life. So a lot of times it's actually giving them that experience. I believe that as real estate agents, you know, we not only are in the people business, but we're in the business of giving people experiences. And once they experience something and they experience a different neighborhood, they realize that that may be what they actually want.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people, as you said, they know what they know, and that's where they want to. That's where they think they want to settle. I think the last year or so has been really interesting because there's been no inventory in pretty much every neighborhood.
Correct.
So you're driven out of having to look in certain areas in order to just expand your search, and that's how people fall in love with different neighborhoods. I also had somebody that had to have Central Park views. Had to. All of a sudden, I'm showing them Nomad. And I'm showing them, University Place in Tribeca. They ended up buying something on University Place. So I think there's been a lot of push for people to have to do that.
Absolutely.
My favorite comment from somebody is that, oh, I know that neighborhood. I have dinner there. Getting dinner in a neighborhood is like going to a destination.
Yeah, you don't.
Like
you don't
that's
walk,
it. You don't explore it. You're not watching the other people around you as if you want to be surrounded by them regularly. Yeah. You got to find your coffee shop. You got to find where is your small little niche. And we're so overstimulated in New York no matter what. You only go to the same 4 restaurants.
Right.
Like I know which personality profile I'm going to see at each restaurant that I'm going to go to, depending on what kind of night that I want to have.
And how you're going to be treated when you get to your
and how you're
going
to be treated when you go there.
Absolutely.
So no matter what, everybody has the same 4 restaurants, the same 1, maybe 2 coffee shops, and they're always going to say that it's the best. It's like the new version of pizza.
Yeah.
We're creatures of habit.
We're creatures of habit, so you got to find that.
Yeah, and oftentimes we tell them, go have dinner, but the having dinner has to involve the walking around the neighborhood. Look, get a feel for the safety. Have coffee there. Grab a friend. Take your stroller. Just walk around.
Yeah,
go there on a
it's
Sunday
a sport.
During the day. Go there on a Tuesday in the middle of the day.
Right.
At night, because it's completely different.
But Isaac, let me ask you. So we talk about people. It is a people business. There's a whole bunch of things. People go to and migrate to neighborhoods for their own reasons. If they stick to it, they stick to it. If not, whatever. But let's talk a little bit about how neighborhoods change, okay? Upper East Side, for example, I was talking offline before we started the show this morning. Upper East Side, prior to the 2nd Avenue subway, was not really a destination a lot of people wanted to live in. Why? Because it was horrible, because the train system was bad. I used to live on the Upper East Side. It took me 20 minutes sometimes to get on a 6 train to go to Wall Street because, trains would have to go by before I can squeeze myself on one. Now it's a whole different world with the 2nd Avenue line. So as neighborhoods are changing, as neighborhoods are gentrifying, right, it's giving people a little more reason to consider a place maybe that they wouldn't before. This is also taking place in Brooklyn and Queens. Talk a little bit about the changing of neighborhoods and how that has affected your book of business or where your clients want to be.
So I think it starts with price, unfortunately. Most people that's really the deciding factor. We all know what we want, and then it's like, what can we actually afford? So, yes, there are people that want to be in the West Village. They can't afford the West Village. Buying a 2-bedroom co-op is not for everyone, right?
Isn't that a fun conversation to have with a finance guy?
Thank you.
Sorry, you don't have enough money.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you're spending $4 or $5 million on a 2-bedroom and you can't afford the West Village, you're going to start liking something new. You're going to have to explore. And like you said, it's a people thing. We have to learn their lifestyle. We obviously understand their financials, but then, okay, where can they get the most bang for their buck?
Okay, spoken from somebody who used to live in the West Village, okay, and also my favorite neighborhood in the world. Now, let me ask you, though. So when they realize that they can't live in the West Village for all the reasons you just stated, and that's 1,000% correct, where do they go? Or better ask, how easy is it to turn them around to a different neighborhood, and what neighborhoods do they pick?
Very difficult to turn them around.
Especially when you start with gorgeous West Village and charming, it's really hard to find that.
And when they learn that they can afford a co-op, but then they can't rent it out. And then
that's another whole story.
No way I can do that.
They're not going to rent it out anyway. They need to understand that's just not going to happen.
But some people don't know that up front. They think that, well, if I'm going to live someplace for only a couple of years, okay, and maybe I don't want to sell my asset because I don't want to sell it, and maybe I want to rent it out. I would say most people who start a search on Street Easy, okay, or wherever they're looking and they're working with us, hopefully, no. They're going to say, oh, I like that apartment, and why? Because of what Isaac just said, price. Right. It's cheaper than a condo, okay? So they're going to go to that, and they're going to send you links, all of us links. I want to look at this apartment because they're looking at the price. When you tell them this is a co-op, and you may not qualify to live in a co-op, then it's like, the glassy eyes. What are you talking about? Absolutely. But I can afford that. I have the money to buy that apartment. You're not going to pass the board.
And as far as subletting, you do typically have a 2-year cushion where you can sublet.
A lot of
you do, but that's also very dependent upon how the board wakes up that morning and says, do we really want to rent this apartment or whatever.
I work with a lot of clients who are purchasing properties for their children. So they're out of state, they're in another country, they're
getting their head around it.
Even California. I was on the phone with a client last week in California. I saw this apartment, I want to buy it for my son. I said, well, let me explain the difference between a condo and a co-op to you. And I sat and I explained and educated her on the process, and she was like, oh my God. Yeah. Do I even want to buy in New York? Because it's scary for some people who aren't New Yorkers. But at the end of the day, we talked about building equity versus spending the money on rent for her son, and we actually have an accepted offer on that co-op. Not the one she wanted originally, because you weren't allowed to rent out and parents weren't allowed to buy for a non-working child. Right. Mm-hmm. So explaining that sometimes, that really...
And then that's really what the deal is.
But to put it in perspective, 75% of Manhattan, maybe 70 at this point with all the new condos that have gone up over the last 60%, you think? So. Park Avenue, they have to undress for everyone, and they're the people that say, or Fifth Avenue, they'll say, Google me, just tell them to Google me, and you're like, oh, how do I get around
your
this?
financials? I won't work with
it's so funny you use that.
Even condos.
No.
Like condos,
more and more,
like the clients are like, I'm the CEO of a company, it's publicly traded, they can see what I make. Like, sorry, you still have to do it.
And no matter how much you prepare them, you still, when you get to that point of like, okay, it's time to work, they're like, wait, this is way more cumbersome than
I tell them from day one. If I'm working with a buyer, I tell them there's no better way to put it, but you have to get financially naked.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
One thing
really
I use that under. It's so funny she said that, Anna. I use that term all the time. I said, when we get to the point where you have to disclose your finances and we have to, put an application in a board package, you need to get undressed in front of the board, and they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" Let me explain to you what I'm talking about, okay?
Before I even start working with them, and ask them to fill it out.
Correct.
Because if they don't fill that out, I said, I don't want to waste your time. Your time is valuable. So I don't want to bring you to a property that you're not going to be able to purchase. For Fifth Avenue co-ops, some of them, one listing I have now, you have to have 10 times the liquidity of the purchase price in liquid assets. So they need to understand, look,
and hope you get by that.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring you, to this property and waste your time, fall in love with something that you can't buy.
And that's also why the price looks so good.
Right.
Like I make sure to always let everybody know, like there is always a trade-off for everything. Absolutely. So if the price is really good, that means there's less buyers that are actually qualified to buy in that building. So one thing I started introducing to people is I just let them know, New York is the best abusive relationship you can't quit. And when you're looking at a home, every step of the way, it will find a way to just smack you in the face a little bit like a cartoon, and it's always going to be there.
Well, I think that's also why
getting knocked down a little bit sometimes in life in general is okay, because as you pick yourself up, you get better, you do better, whatever. So I get that.
Like New York doesn't make financial sense for anybody. If you're a billionaire, your taxes suck unless you find other ways to cut it off. So and we're all very high earners.
Correct.
It's the lifestyle, and I think it is actually that abusive relationship. That's why we stay here so
it's
long.
The lifestyle.
It's
a
amazing.
lot of people want to say they own a piece of the apple.
Absolutely, and I think also the lifestyle determines neighborhood.
Yep.
For example, I had a client who was looking at downtown. I want downtown. Showed them multiple properties. Long story short, ended up showing them something they didn't think they wanted. We exhausted all options. We went from 10 million to 20 plus million. And I said, you need to see this. I know you're going to like it. But it's on Billionaires Row. It's further uptown than I want. And then it has no outdoor space. It had a gorgeous view of Central Park. I said, okay, well, how often do you use your outdoor space? Well, maybe once a year. I said, you have a house in the Hamptons, you have other homes. What do you need it for? Well, and this particular client really thought they had to have outdoor space. But it was actually showing them something that they didn't think they wanted, and a neighborhood they didn't think that they were going to live in, that they fell in love with because it was such a beautiful space, beautiful view, beautiful building, and guess what? Sold.
Yeah, and they're staring at their outdoor space.
Exactly.
Walk out of your building and go to
or they're putting a bike out there or baby carriage. We have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. But quick programming note, you can now watch Talking New York Real Estate on YouTube if you don't want to listen on podcast. So you've got your choice. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, Work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
All right, so Daniel, how do economic factors such as job growth, income levels, and affordability influence the specialization of our markets? You talked a little bit about it before, where it's a very, very expensive town, but people still have budgets. People still have certain incomes that they have to kind of map, monthly numbers to, including a mortgage and maintenance and common charges. But how do these factors really affect the growth of our markets, over time?
So we need to have a real conversation with our clients about finances and lifestyle and figure out where are they in their life. So when you look at each neighborhood and the demographics that are moving there, part of it goes in with the space that they need and the type of property. So if you want to move to Park Slope, you're going to get a townhouse. Now we need to decide how many bedrooms do you need and what is the renovation? Because if you move to Park Slope, get a townhouse, are you going to send your kids to public school or are you going to send your kids to private school? And does it now give you enough room for a live-in nanny, which can actually save you enough money? So that can save you more money than...
I'd love to have a live-in nanny,
right.
For heaven's sakes.
So we start positioning what that lifestyle is, or can you get a garden-level apartment and rent out that garden-level apartment? If you're going to rent out the garden, that's $4,000 to $5,000 a month.
Correct.
On pass-through money to pay off your monthly. So your monthlies of this $5.5 million townhouse are actually less expensive overall than a $3.5 to $4 million condo in Tribeca. So then we got to look in Greenpoint. Same kind of concept. Do you live a little further away from the train? And that, I would say, based off of the lifestyle shift and different demographics and where people are coming from and where the energy of where they want to go, starts to adjust the I would say the financial ability of that neighborhood. Like we're seeing Greenpoint skyrocket.
Yeah.
And the monthlies are super low. You're going to get a 3-bedroom condo there for 2.1 and your monthlies are $1,300 a month. You move that to the Upper East Side, sure, it's going to be 1.8 to 2.2, but your monthlies are $3,600 to $4,200 a month.
The maintenance on the Upper East Side has always been extremely high. Right. Even when I lived there 25 years ago, my one-bedroom maintenance was $1,150. Wow. Then I can't even imagine what it is. It's outrageous.
Inflation? What would that be now?
Yeah. I don't even want to know. Probably close to $4,000. Isaac, so give me your impression of you do a lot of borough work as well as Manhattan work. So when you're out there, looking at places in Brooklyn or in Queens, whatever, what is the conversation? Where's Queens? What is the conversation you have with, these buyers who are willing to live in the boroughs? Brooklyn, by the way, is on fire hot. It's not,
always.
When I was growing up, it was like, no, you don't want to be anywhere near Brooklyn. Just, that's not the cool place. You're going to Manhattan, okay? And I've been saying for years on this show, if I were starting out today in my 20s, I would live in Brooklyn only. That's me. What's the flavor out there these days?
I think Brooklyn is hot. I'm from Brooklyn.
It is hot.
I love Brooklyn, but
and I forgot to turn my watch off. Sorry.
People love headlines, and Brooklyn's on fire. Everybody wants to be there. Not everybody. Only like half the people, because half my clients, I bring up the word Brooklyn, and they want to, stop working with me. I had a listing.
Yeah, but tell me why. Why do they want to stop working? They don't want to live there?
They don't want to live there. They want to live in Manhattan. They want to be in New York to be in New York.
Yeah.
I think it's really lifestyle. If you have a family, you want a break from the craziness of Manhattan, going back home to Brooklyn. I think that's what people want and why they want to be in Brooklyn. But some people, they want to wake up and be in the city, come home from work, be in the restaurants, in the neighborhoods, in Manhattan.
Okay, I hear that and I get that, but you have that in all the neighborhoods. You certainly have that these days in Long Island City. I mean, it really does become, you said it earlier, it becomes an issue of, first and foremost, how much can I afford? Where can I spend the most that I want to spend and get the most for it? So it really does come down to that. I know everybody has personal taste, right? I mean, first places I wanted to go was the Upper East Side, and that's where I lived for years before I, moved to the West Side. But I get that, and I'm respectful for that. But Anna, talk a little bit about niche markets, because not every market Well, first of all, in this town, okay, when people say, you know, what, and I've repeated this on the show many, many times, what's the market like in New York these days? And my question is, what market are you talking about? Okay, because there is no longer a one market here. We have multiple markets, right? Each neighborhood, you mentioned the Upper West Side before. The Upper West Side, 4 neighborhoods, potentially 5 neighborhoods, Upper East Side. So it depends on where you're looking. But niche markets out of that, you know, become popular. Is it a thing because real estate agents make them popular, or is it a thing because people hear, well, I can live on 2nd Avenue now because the 2nd Avenue subway is there, which is, you know, 5 years ago, I couldn't live anywhere but west of Lexington, and we all know west of Lexington was a mint, a fortune, not affordable.
I think a lot of it has to do with neighborhood infrastructure, and I mean, to the point of, you know, wanting to live in Manhattan versus Brooklyn, they probably don't know Brooklyn. Because once you step foot in Brooklyn and you see, you know, other than Williamsburg, there are really no high-rises around you, and you get lots of sky and lots of sun and lots of trees and lots of charm, they might change their tune on Brooklyn. But I think niche neighborhoods are, you know, it's funny because, you know, going back to COVID, anyone wanted to live anywhere. People wanted to live anywhere. They just want a good deal. They want to live anywhere. And now it is kind of settling into, I've been doing a lot of business in Dumbo and Brooklyn Heights lately. And
love
people
those two
will
neighborhoods.
not, I love Dumbo. People will not move out of those neighborhoods. Maybe they'll, like, you know, stick a toe in Borum Hill or Cobble Hill or something and see, just because there's really not a lot of inventory, so they're pushed. So
if you want a house, Cobble Hill is perfect.
Yeah, I think the niches have changed so much because with that neighborhood infrastructure, so many things have closed down. So that takes away from that neighborhood because you used to be able to say, well, something, you know, I don't love seeing things close down, but I love what's coming next. How fun would that be? It's usually a bank, but which takes all the fun out of it. But the neighborhood, you know, the amenities within the neighborhoods have changed so dramatically over the last few years, and it's not just about being near a subway anymore. For example, my neighborhood, the Lower East Side, south of Delancey, I mean, I bought there because of the infrastructure that was coming in, and I wanted to be specifically there. Essex Crossing has brought an entirely different animal to that part of the world. And it's still a very affordable area to be in. And back then when I bought, it was like, I get what for what? I'll take 2.
Yeah.
And then now you have like the niche of the niche of Dime Square, which is like that tiny little triangle of Division Street and Canal Street, where it's like, if you go there, if you want like a really good bespoke restaurant experience, that's where you go. And I have people that have said, this is where I want to be. It's getting tighter and tighter, but there's also less and less inventory.
So going back to the opening remarks I made when the show first started, you know, we talk about, and Anna mentioned it, you know, COVID and a lot of things that affected our markets, right? But one of the things I read in the opening was how, for a while, you know, people were going to the suburbs, leaving New York City, and I'll complete that thought in a minute, but leaving New York City, going to the suburbs because they wanted more outdoor space. They didn't want to feel all cooped up if something like COVID happened again. They wanted home office space. They wanted to put their kids in different schools, etc. Of course, then the migration back to New York City has been unbelievable and just fantastic. But the suburbs are still on fire hot. Something goes on the market in the suburbs, and I question, where do these people come from? But something goes on the market in the suburbs, it's gone within a week. We can't say that is happening here in New York City, okay? Things sell, buyers are coming back slowly, but it's not as robust as the burbs. Why is that?
Price and price point. You get so much more for your money in the suburbs. I mean, you can buy a fabulous house in New Jersey or Long Island for $1 million. You get 4, 5, 6 bedrooms in some areas.
And lots of property.
You have lots of property. You have great schools. You don't have to send your kids to private school.
Right.
And it's space. People want that space if they're raising a family. They want their kids to play in the backyard. So it's something that's desirable. I think for a long time, people wanted to go to the suburbs because they were working from home. So they didn't have to be in the city. I think some people
but it's like gag me with a spoon. I mean, it's like, okay, so you get more
live in
property, you get more space, but so what?
I mean, but also there are no
But you're
high-rises.
right. You're 100% correct.
People are buying houses. The density of the suburbs it's completely different, and there's like 10 people per house. that want that house.
Well, I think it's also stages in life. So, you go through different stages in life, and there are some of us who will always be Manhattanites and will never want to leave the city, and we love that fast-paced lifestyle. But there's others that they grow to a part in their life where they want something quieter, and they want to be in the suburbs, and they want their kids to have a better life or a cleaner life or whatnot, and that's why they go out there, which is why there is so much demand and so little supply.
And again, things just run off the marketplace, race off the market in a heartbeat. It's like, okay, we used to have that kind of thing here in New York City, but we don't anymore. When is it coming back?
I think it's coming now.
We do and we don't, because I'm doing a lot of pied-à-terre business. And pied-à-terre business from all over the country.
And I have a lot of parents buying for children, student children.
Big time. And it's the empty nesters that are in the suburbs.
People that don't know what a pied-à-terre is.
Pied-à-terre is when you fortunately have the great financial situation to own a beautiful piece of Manhattan or New York City in general. And also have that as your second home or just part-time residence, because you also want to live like a child too. So I think that works. So,
but not in a co-op.
Not. I don't know. Co-ops allow pied-à-terres a lot of the times, and sometimes it is just because they don't want to be viewed as a rental or a crash pad. They want to be viewed as somebody. They want the new owner to be a contributing member of the community in that building. They don't
want the building to be abused.
So there are ways, there are ways to present it so that the person actually feels like they are a part of that community, and those buildings will allow pied-à-terres. So I think it's not as rigid as it used to be.
Anna, let's talk about schools. You have two gorgeous children in our school system and private school. Tell us how schools really affect adults searching for new places to live based on where the kids are going to go to school.
Yeah, so number one, it depends how many kids you have, because more than likely those kids are going to different schools, and there's going to be somebody that's commuting somewhere. But typically the schools that are known to be good, and a lot of schools that are not known to be good, are actually getting good. Yeah. A lot of these areas that have been kind of depressed and there's value. A lot of great people are moving there and changing the schools. So
interesting.
People do
moving there and changing the schools. Yeah,
I mean,
I get that.
You also call it good parenting helps.
Yeah, yes, good parenting does help.
Not always there. But.
I mean, my kids, they both have to take public transportation, or if we're running late, an Uber to school. And I don't live near either of my kids' schools. I used to live near one of the elementary schools until I moved them across town. You start off there, and then these people have to remember that if you want to be near the elementary school, you're going to be there for max 5 years, and then that kid is going to be going somewhere else in Manhattan. They're going to be older. They're going to be able to commute on their own or with some friends or whatever. But it is kind of a shorter term commitment to be near a school. They do want to be walking distance, or at least within a 15-minute walk, but it's there. You have to remind them there's a bigger picture to look at, unless you really want to
When I do take the train sometimes in the morning, I do see parents, with their young children getting onto the
taking trains in the morning. So.
Well, every once in a while,
I don't believe the
used to.
Not today, but every once in a while. But I always see when it's school time, I always see the parents taking the kids on the train and delivering them to whatever school they're going to. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing. Yeah. But I know schools drive real estate traffic. I mean, they do. Yeah, it used to be, I need to live close to my job. I need to live close to where, the fastest train. That's why
the spring sales market that's one of the many, many things that drives the spring sales market, because people want to be settled by the time their kids go to school in September. And also that's why the rental market is hottest in the summer. People want to be settled so their kids can go to school in September. Yeah. That is, as far as seasonality in the markets, which we're not talking about at all right now, but going into
what
spring.
What season are we in?
Well,
I don't
that's
even
the
know.
thing. Going into spring is really the only time where there's any seasonality left because of the schools, because people want to be settled for schools.
Yeah.
One of the many reasons.
What is, just following up on your schools, because as a childless human in New York, what is your...
Wait a minute. Childless human, did he say?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a childful human.
I know, right?
I'm not going to touch that one.
So what does this... How did the commute times adjust? When did your kids, and what age group did they start commuting by themselves or with friends? And then how does that... if people are considering moving further away from a school, or they don't know what school they're going to get into, what were those lifestyle age group changes?
Both of my kids in mid sixth grade, started commuting on their own. My older one
Was that
is
your decision or their decision?
a little bit of both.
Independence.
It was one of those.
Young
It was one of
these
those.
days.
You do it with them, and then you kind of trail behind them for a month or so, and make sure they know what they're doing. Cell phones help tremendously.
It's like training.
It's training, and my older son looks older than he is, so for him, I felt a little bit more confident about it. My little one, he is commuting with friends, and I wouldn't have it.
He's
any
on the
other
train
way.
by himself.
He's on the bus. He takes the
All right, the
city
bus is okay.
Yeah, but with friends. Otherwise, I'd be going with him. He can handle it, and sometimes he takes it home on his own too. But there is a mental process that you don't just say this is my plan. You really have to wean into it, and when you get to that stage, you notice that a lot of people are doing that too. So the fact that you can kind of pod together with other kids and they can keep each other safe. I mean, my 11-year-old is on the city bus. He can call me the entire way there if he wants to. He's not underground.
Makes it accessible.
Now that we have Wi-Fi in
it
Subway,
does.
I didn't think that really helps out.
It does.
I'm sorry, say that
I
again?
have a lot of clients who live downtown and their kids are on the Upper East or Upper West, and they're doing carpools because there's a lot of kids that have to go to those schools, so they're all going together.
Right.
So that way they're not alone, they're not taking public transportation alone, but it actually makes sense for them to pool together and have these carpools.
Are there car services that do that? Because I do know of families that live down in Tribeca or in the lower, district
So they've put them
that go
together.
up to the Upper East where there are a lot of private schools.
Yeah,
and they
so-
put them together?
So they've actually, I was speaking to a friend and client about 2 weeks ago, and they've actually put together a neighborhood carpool for the school that their kids go to.
Yeah.
So there's, I think, about 4
Interesting.
families in the neighborhood, and they've hired somebody to actually make this carpool happen.
I remember 25 years ago, I was living on East 72nd Street in a co-op that I owned, and I used to work on Wall Street. And a buddy of mine who lived on 72nd Street also, we would meet every evening at 6 o'clock or whenever the workday ended. And he worked not too far from me and lived not too far from me. And we actually started together at IBM. Anyway, so we would take this car service, pooled car service, that you'd have to walk to the end of Wall Street and wait there, and cars would go by, and they there was like a taxi line, and they would stop, and they'd take 4 or 5 people, and they would make stops all the way uptown, and I'd get off on 71st Street, I think was the stop, and it was a 1-block walk. But hey, it cost really, I think it was $1 a ride in those days.
Wow.
It was nothing.
A lot of people are already settled where they are, and they have to figure out schools. They're not necessarily going to sell their place and buy something new to be closer to the school. It's the people that are targeting school proximity neighborhoods are those that are moving anyway. They need to move anyway. So a lot of families just have to kind of figure out how you're going to do it, because you're not going to sacrifice the kids' education for it.
No, and some of the private schools, some of the public schools like PS6 on the Upper East Side, I mean, that's well known around the city as being one of the better schools.
And you have to be zoned for certain schools, so that's why they want those addresses. But I mean, I'm not zoned for either of the schools.
No. Right, but for public school, you have to be zoned for that. So, for public, But that again, drives people to move to different locations when they can't necessarily afford private school. I want my kid to go to PS6 or PS whatever it is.
There are great public schools in this city.
Yeah.
They've gotten, as you said before, they've gotten so much better just in the years that I'm living here, 30 years living here. They've gotten so much better. But PS6 and a few of the others are.
It'd be nice to pay our teachers a little more, but
that's very true.
Why would we do that?
I have clients who tell me if I can buy in this neighborhood,
I teach too, and I don't get paid enough money.
I'll
either.
spend $1 million more on a home because I save $50,000 to $100,000 a year.
Well, and that too. But Isaac, let me ask you to talk a little bit about in your book of business, emerging from your perspective, some emerging markets. That you're seeing, some like new markets. Where are they? Are they in Brooklyn? Are they in Manhattan? Are they in Queens? Where are they? I mean,
so I think the answer to a lot of the questions that we're having here today is everything evolves, right? So I feel like 20 years ago, Murray Hill was a lot more attractive than it is today.
That's when I lived. My first apartment was in Murray Hill.
Like I said,
That's what I think. Murray Hill's blown up right now.
That's my point. But 5 years ago, nobody wanted to live there,
Dead.
right?
Dead.
So it is an emerging market. Why? Because the people who want to live in the West Village, they can't buy there. So Murray Hill becomes a lot more attractive, and a lot of great restaurants are coming up there. A lot of new developments, great condo buildings, Nomad.
There are some
You have Whole
great new
Foods,
developments in that
Whole
area.
Foods,
Yeah.
Trader Joe's,
Yeah.
et cetera.
And
Well,
the
that'll
kind of
bring, if anything is going to bring
seeping
anybody
out
to a
of
neighborhood, it's
Nomad
Whole Foods.
into
Well,
that
you
area.
didn't have grocery shopping there before, and now you have
Never.
Nomad. You can actually walk there. You used to go onto Broadway and you get jeggings, nails, or wigs, and now it's like.
I'm
it's
waiting for
coffee and
Wegmans to come. We announced it on my show a couple of weeks ago. I'm waiting for Wegmans to come to the Upper East Side, my neighborhood, because now I'm in heaven. Okay, you bring me Wegmans, I'm in
I
heaven.
order from them like 3 times a week.
Love them. Instacart. Well, I'm not going to go to the store. I'm
yeah.
going to Instacart. You kidding? All right, we have to take a quick break. And by the way, I'm not aging myself. I keep saying 25 years, 25 years. I'm not that old, okay?
Only 26.
I'm only, yeah, right. We're coming right back after after a quick message. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network. Don't go anywhere.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, everybody, we're back. So I wanted to just read off some stats, okay, the weekly stats that I get in my morning mail. So Manhattan contracts signed this week, 202 contracts. That is less than the week before, 219. In Brooklyn, 139 contracts were signed this week. These are purchase contracts. 121 last week, so down in Brooklyn as well. And Manhattan pending sales increased to 2,516 units this week. So quick comment on the market, right? The slow market, you know, the high interest rate causing market, whatever you want to call it, is changing a bit. People are coming back to the market. There seems to be an uptick. Activity at open houses, activity in just private showings seems to have come back. Buyers are now picking up the phone again and saying, Vince, you keep telling me about this. I think I'm now ready. I'm like, oh, really? Isn't that something?
Those contract sign numbers, sorry, Nicole, to interrupt. Those contract sign numbers are more significant when you look at last quarter or last year.
Correct.
Than they are for last week.
Well, I think it takes time for people to get used to things. So 7% interest rate, it took people some time to adjust to that.
Wow.
Historically, it's low. I mean, my father bought our first house, I think, for 18% interest rate in the early 80s.
Yes. Mine was
but
12.
in the last 10, 15 years, we're looking at sub 3% interest rates, and 7% is really hard for somebody to stomach. However, people are getting used to it. And when you look at the numbers at the end of the day, and buyers realize, you know what, inventory is tightening, so I might as well buy now if I love something, because if I don't buy now and interest rates do come down a little bit, well, the prices are most likely going to go up. So at the end of the day, I'm still going to have value and I'm going to build equity in something. And I think it just took a little while for people to recognize that. I think we're also seeing more international money start to come back, which is important in the luxury market as well. Q3, Q4 last year, it was like crickets. And the first month, even January alone, which is usually a very quiet month in the sales market in Manhattan, we had more showings January than we did all Q3 and Q4.
Yep. Because in December, the Fed announced that they were going to be reducing interest rates, and then all of a sudden he backs down and says, well, we're not ready to do that. Okay,
and
really?
Also understanding that the low point of the market is already in the rear view.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes,
People
absolutely.
need to be like, we hear all the time, oh, I'm not ready to seriously look yet. It's like, start looking. Start looking with a broker,
Just
because you need to figure out what you want.
Exactly.
So that not only are you going to see the past inventory, so you're going to know what the comps are and were. So you'll educate yourself that way, but you'll also start to figure out the nuance between the space. Do you need a big kitchen? Do you need a little kitchen? Do you want 3, like, where do you want your bedrooms to be?
You're going to have to be. You're going to have to be ready to pounce.
You need to be ready to pounce, because people are starting to lose out, and we don't know when the next option's coming up. Like, I'm looking in Williamsburg right now for 2 clients between 2 and 2.5, and I've called every broker that has new developments. I've reached out to all the developers that have built a building in the last 7 years in those areas. And they're all like, well, what inventory is coming out? I'm like, there's actually nothing. And this is what it's going to be, and the price point.
What you need to do is look at what's been taken off the market in December, because those are about to come back on.
Yep,
Okay,
and they all are.
That's a perfect segue. Development. So we talk about niche markets, we talk about niche neighborhoods, we talk about specialized neighborhoods. The difference in this town between brand new condo, post-war, pre-war, whatever, everybody has their thought about what they want, okay? What's new development look like today? We know the inventory is down across the resale and the new developments out. What does new development look like now? And when you're working with a new development buyer, because there are people out there, and I've spent years selling new developments, as you well know.
Oh, yes.
They want new. They want brand new. They want to be the first person to put their head down on that pillow at night before anybody else. They want all the amenities. I read something, I think, last week. They want hotel services. You want hotel services? Go live in a hotel. They want concierge services. They want a pool.
There's
right?
not many options.
There's not many options. So where are we today, new development?
We are lacking inventory, and we are having to get our buyers' heads around, it might not exist what you're looking for, but if you buy something that is new-ish and you can
what I tell you guys earlier today, it does not exist, right? There you go.
It does not exist.
Heard it from a superstar.
It does. It's $3,500 a foot.
But,
right.
Or plus. But at the same time, what I've been doing with buyers who want new development is, why don't you buy something that's completely gut renovated? It's just like new development, but you don't have to pay the extra transfer taxes, and it's not as new, but you're going to be the first one to live in a brand new gut renovation, and it's just like living in new development because the options just aren't there. They don't exist. And to build something in Manhattan takes so long. I was in Central Park Tower the other day. It took 17 years to put that building together and develop it. So it's going to be quite a while before
Quite
we
a
have
building,
a lot
though.
of,
Quite a building, though.
Absolutely.
Building.
Quite a building.
Spectacular building.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, it's like, look at the developments that were done 10 to 20 years ago because they have amazing layouts. The brand new construction stuff, you have a loss factor on that square footage by about 20%. So, and the amenities are probably
You said
included.
it, I didn't.
So when you realize, I need 2,200 square feet, well, that 2,200 square feet is really 1,650, and you're paying a 2,200 square foot price, which is the easiest way to get a finance guy to overpay for a property. So let's figure out, how are you actually going to use the space? And sometimes, like the kitchen cabinets and everything were done so
Spoken
well.
like a true real estate agent.
I know, right? I'm here
You're
for you.
right. You're right.
15 to 20 years ago, the product and the quality of them were so good that all you have to do is paint it, buff the floors, paint the cabinets white, and anybody new coming in and say, "Oh my God, they got renovated it." It's like, no, you literally painted the cabinets white,
like
and it's
that.
that's
Condo buildings that were
did
built around 2005, 2010, I think are like the best value to buy today.
absolutely.
Correct.
They're
And
the
your
best
monthlies
value,
are lower.
and
Everything.
on top
like
of
they
that,
used to.
and
No.
on top of that, it's not for nothing that these buildings have settled. The structural issues that you're going to come across in a brand new development
In the first few years.
All of that's been worked out.
yeah.
The boards have been worked out. It's just better to buy in a building that's settled for at least 5 to 7
like
years.
you look at 35 West
Physically,
15th Street. All those owners had to redo their floors.
Yeah.
They were in lawsuits in the building. Like, it was insane.
Look at
Buy it now.
432 Park.
It's amazing.
All the people that jumped on that. Ooh.
Oh, dear.
Don't they wish they waited 5 to 7 years?
Talk about running upstairs.
70 broom.
Running up the...
Yeah, don't live in that building.
There are all kinds of issues and developers being sued and infrastructure problems. I mean, I walked into a new development I was selling a couple of years ago on the Upper East Side, and the doorman was looking at me, he should have had an umbrella because the ceiling was... And he said, "I was waiting for you to come, Vince, because I know you have appointments today, and I know you're going to be really furious about this." I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
Of course, no one knows.
Well, that's our job as agents to explain to our clients, this is what you may not want to do.
We had a little malfunction this morning.
100%.
Somebody
But
cut
it's
a
all-
line.
it's all part
Whatever
of the
I came up
education.
with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
this also goes into sellers. Paint your apartment, please.
Oh, really?
Paint your apartment.
Really?
Maybe paint your cabinets. You will get that money back. It is so worth it, and yes,
Or
it
at
does
least
make a
it'll sell
difference.
faster.
But it's
Yeah.
also our job to help our clients understand what's a big deal. Like if the elevator has had problems for the last 5 years, don't buy in this building.
Don't buy in the building.
But if like the lobby's a little dated, buy in the building. Like at some point
some
they'll
point it'll be
redo
right.
it
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I had a buyer not want to buy in a 2005 condo conversion because they didn't like the way that the hallways felt versus the brand new construction. Like, yeah, this one's at $2.5 million. The other one's at $3.5. All they have to do is paint the hallway, and it is a whole new building. Get on the board and paint the hallway, and you saved yourself $1 million.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
come
that's
on.
why we need to be there to explain to them. And the Four Seasons downtown has had a lot of issues recently too. And I
Yes.
had clients who, we looked at that. Well, you don't know that there's been no water, there's been no gas. Like that's our job to know this and to educate them so they don't make a mistake, a big financial mistake.
It's so funny you say that about hallways.
Trying to get rid of the gas lines.
Before I was a real estate agent, so 25 years ago, when I was still buying and selling apartments on my, with an agent, from another company who, whatever. I was like her annuity, she used to call me, okay? Buy an apartment every year and sell one every year.
Those are the best clients.
I was bored, so I wanted to just keep, I was in corporate sale, so who cares? Right. So there was this one condo on Park Avenue. Okay, I'm not going to give the address because it still pains me that I was so stupid. Park Avenue, $425,000, beautiful one-bedroom. And so I'm walking around, and my agent knew me like the back of her hand, okay, because we've been working together for years. And she's like, all right, so talk to me. I know there's something wrong. I said, well, you know what? The hallway's just a little too dingy. I know it's a condo, and I know it's Park Avenue, and da-da-da. And what did she say to me? Get over it. Yep. And then we're in the apartment, and I thought the hallway between, I don't know, the entrance foyer to the bedroom area was also kind of a little narrow. And I thought, and she said again, what's wrong? I said, the hallway here is a little, she said, what's with the hallways in you today? Okay. And she had shown me hundreds of apartments. I said, I don't know. I just, whatever. And she said, $400,000, Park Avenue, late 90s, whatever it was. God. Do not screw this up. I'm like, well, she was right. I said, I don't think so.
No
that $400,000 is now over $2 million.
$10 million?
Over $2 million.
But to your credit,
you have $100 million. You're never
those are war stories that I can take to the grave
ever.
with me that I can never figure out up here how stupid you could be, right?
Yeah.
A buyer can be.
But to your credit, I am a hallway guy because
I am a hallway guy. Trust me.
If I have to say, if I'm spending X amount of money and I have to say, excuse me, when I'm trying to walk past somebody in my own safe space, it doesn't work.
But are you willing to pay $1,000 more a foot?
That's a big number.
I would say
yeah, exactly.
I will make up the difference in therapy. So, yes.
Expensive therapist.
They got to be good.
Well, if you live in New York City, you need an expensive therapist, okay? That just goes with the territory. So, what are the strategies that you all employ with your buyers when you get a buyer for the first time, and they want to live, I want to live in the village, or I want to live over here, and then, you really have to work with them, as we all said before, with our advice, with our business knowledge, with the data that we have accumulated through the years. And you try and explain to them, I think you said it before, Dan, you got to kind of understand how they live or what they do. But what are the strategies that you use to get to those questions? Because just like the financial question, when you ask them to disclose their finances, they're like, I'm not doing that. No one needs to know that. Well, you want to live in New York City? You got to do that. Okay.
I always start with what they want. Start with your best case scenario.
Do they know?
Let them know that you're listening.
It adjusts a bit.
Yeah, well, they know what they know. So you want them to know that you're listening to them, you hear them, you're not trying to push them into other neighborhoods. I think a lot of buyers get really annoyed at that. This is what I want. I'm telling her this is what I want, and she's showing me something else. You start with what they want. It's not if they find something day one, congratulations, you've done your job and you've listened to your buyer. If they don't, more than likely it's going to be a process anyway, and you'll have that opportunity the next time around to introduce different neighborhoods and different opportunities.
How many times does it does happen day one? How many times have we been out with buyers for like 3 months, 2 months, weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden, when they come to you and say, Vince, remember that first apartment we saw, wherever the neighborhood was?
There's always one that
you think we can go back and see that? No, it's gone. It's long gone.
There's always one that got away.
Right?
But that's why they need to be in the market, because it's going to take them time to know what
they
want.
have to process.
They have to see what they don't want to know what they do want.
Exactly.
Yep.
You have to
Big
see
time.
the bad and the good.
And you need to show them everything.
Yeah.
So it is purely, I'll just, if I'm bringing out a new buyer, I might just throw some things on. Just as an example, listen, I understand you're not going to want this, but we need to start seeing what the trade-offs are. It's super easy to see just based off of what our schedule is. It fills this gap. Let's go see it. We'll get a coffee, and then you'll see the difference in the kitchen size, because I will be able to compare that layout versus another one that we can't get into today, so that you can balance some of the trade-offs.
Well, I think that's also so important as to why we have to ask questions, because sometimes our clients think they know what they want, but the more questions we ask, the more we start to understand that they don't, and then they start to understand that as well based on their answers to those questions.
She knows more than I do.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
I had a buyer who I worked with for over 3 years. Lovely, lovely, lovely. It got to a point where they said, I want to see this, Nicole. I said, go see it. You're not going to buy that because I know what you want. Long story short, I finally found something in a new development that I was like, it checks almost every box. You're going to have to give up a little interior space for exterior.
And I bet their budget increased through the
sacrifice.
Yeah, well, the budget increased always, but they ended up buying it, even though they didn't want to be in that neighborhood. I had to bring their daughter to convince them, the son, and they loved it because they said, you actually listened the whole time. I said, yes.
Yeah, of course.
But we found it.
Quickly, trends. What's trending in Manhattan and in New York City real estate these days? What seems to be trending in New York City right now, whether it's a neighborhood, whether it's an apartment, whether it's new development versus old?
Yep.
Pied-à-terres. Why is that?
A lot of people.
And where are they coming from?
So international, suburbs, Florida. A lot of people who have moved down to Florida actually now kind of miss New York.
Coming back.
They want a little piece of the Big Apple now. So they want a place that they can come and they can enjoy.
You mean you want to have a conversation?
Sorry?
You mean you want to have a conversation with other people? That's what happens in New York. I know, right? It's terrible.
But actually, it happens everywhere else but New York. In New York, we actually forget to converse. We're always on our phones.
Right.
No.
So, yeah.
You get on the subway train and all you see are tops of heads.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Which is fine. I don't want to look at you. But, I mean, all you see is tops of heads.
I'm pretty.
Not you.
I'm kidding.
You're not on the train.
You're not on the train.
I'm joking.
And believe me, I would not see you on the train, okay? Just like you're not going to see me on the train. But what else is trending here? Is there a neighborhood, though, that is trending?
Downtown. I think downtown's trending. Downtown has been trending.
Downtown's always trending.
Yeah.
Just like the people that
restaurants.
said, I don't live above 14th Street now have money. But I would say...
Well, I get a nosebleed if I have to live above 14th Street. I'm like, oh, isn't that too bad for you?
It's hard to say what's trending because people are kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm working with buyers in most neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Literally most neighborhoods.
Most neighborhoods.
Like not really geared toward one specific thing.
All right, last question before I have an off-topic question. Last question. So what is your favorite neighborhood? Isaac?
My favorite neighborhood is the West Village, but...
Oh,
really? Yes, but
So
I've learned to love almost every neighborhood for what it is. You have to be in a different mindset when you're on the Upper East Side.
He really is a real estate agent, okay? That's spoken like a true real estate agent.
He's
that's
a
not what I tell
politician.
clients.
No, but I
It's what
agree with you
feel.
100%.
It's like I actually wish I can live in another neighborhood every 18 months.
I did for the first 6 years of living here. I picked every neighborhood. I know I was. Oh, my broker loved me.
I'm sure she did. You're the gift that kept on giving.
That's right.
Literally. We love
That's what she used to say.
I might be a little biased. I love Tribeca. I live in Tribeca. I think it's
Yes.
an incredible neighborhood. I love the cobblestone streets.
Yeah.
I love the people. And it's actually the one place that I've ever lived in Manhattan that I feel is a community and an actual neighborhood.
I totally agree with you.
ride the city bike.
I do. Only on the highway, though.
Not on the cobblestone streets.
No, only on the highway.
I'm not getting on a city bike. That's not happening. Go
I
ahead.
mean, I love the Lower East Side. I live there. It's where I chose to raise my children. I love the little bit of grit that's still there. Well, there's still a lot of grit there, but I love all the new things that are coming in, juxtaposed with the grit.
There.
I love my investment there, and I love the community there. I think it's really diverse. It's really interesting. There are so many people from different walks of life everywhere you look.
Yeah.
I really love that. I also really love Dumbo.
I love
It's
Dumbo
just so
too.
beautiful. And
Daniel
the
Blatman.
architecture
But you've
there is
never
great.
lived there.
No.
With kids, I think it's harder.
Dumbo's beautiful, but
Transportation is a little tricky when you
Yeah.
have children.
I sell there,
and not
so
that
I
many
get that.
options,
No.
just in general.
it's also
The
a
train.
very isolated
Yep,
neighborhood.
I think it's like the
Like
armpit of
if you
Brooklyn.
live in any neighborhood in Manhattan,
No,
you can
it
walk
is.
to two other neighborhoods.
Fida's like
Dumbo,
the armpit
you
of
don't.
Manhattan, and I live there.
It's true, but it's
Well, I
beautiful.
don't know about that.
Dumbo's like the
How many
armpit
times
of like you
can you
can't
go
you. There's no exits. You only have one.
Well, that's what I
No,
said.
there's plenty there.
Transporting,
There's
in
way
and
more
out.
than just that.
What is your favorite neighborhood?
I haven't had the luxury of thinking what my favorite neighborhood is.
Okay.
Because
now.
I'm everywhere all the time, and I make sure I base my life on where do I need to live in order to get everywhere in the city within 30 minutes on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. But lately, I've been spending a lot of time in Greenpoint and Williamsburg. So I think if I had to pick, and I didn't need to commute as much as I do, that's where I would go because it feels more suburban, and I get more sky, and it's more relaxing.
Saturday morning at 9 a.m., I'm not looking to go anywhere in 30 minutes, okay? I'm sitting on my couch, I'm having a cup of coffee, and then I might consider, planning the rest of my day later in the day. But I get it. I happen to agree with you, Isaac. I happen to love the West Village. I also love Tribeca. Those are my two favorite neighborhoods. Always, I could have lived in Tribeca also. She wanted to kill me then when it was not even Tribeca, okay?
Hindsight's 2020.
Back in the 80s. I don't even want to tell you the zillions of dollars I
you
lost
needed
in
to
that
have
one.
a whistle around your neck.
I
for
don't
that
know.
one. Just
I needed to
get
have
your own police force.
Use it, call it therapy before. That's what I needed to have. All right, we're coming right back with my thoughts for the day. Don't go anywhere. Okay, everybody, we are back with my thoughts for the day. The real estate industry plays a significant role in the global economy, and its dynamics are often influenced by current world events. In recent years, various global events have shaped the landscape of the real estate market. One such event was the COVID-19 pandemic, which has had a profound impact on the real estate sector here in New York City and actually all around the world. Lockdowns, travel restrictions, and economic uncertainties had shifts in demand and supply. The rise of remote work and the need for more space have increased the demand for suburban and rural properties, while urban areas have experienced a slowdown, and in particular, the commercial real estate sector. Climate change, political and economic events have had a profound impact on the real estate market. Changes, for example, in government policies, trade agreements, and tax regulations can influence investment decisions and market trends. Economic downturns or inflation can lead to a decline in property values and construction activity. Overall, the real estate industry is intricately linked to current world events, and industry players must stay informed and adaptable to navigate the ever-changing landscape. And that's our broadcast for today. Thanks so much to my guests for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok at Vince Rocco, or my website, thinkvince.com. Norman Vincent Peale says, shoot for the moon, everyone. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. And to all of you around the world, from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network, thank you again, once again, for spending a part of your day with us. I am so grateful, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.